All right, we're on. We're live. So it's April 22nd, 2020, day before the NFL draft, round one, Thursday, 5 p.m. Pacific. I can't wait. I've been thinking about this for weeks. Obviously, coming off of a very tough Super Bowl loss, want to turn the page and replenish the bricks. But really, this is honestly one of my favorite things about sports. The NFL draft is fucking awesome. Decided I should go through my big board for the 49ers in the first round and some of my top level takes. A key note is that a lot of this analysis I will be talking out of my ass, and I will be basing this off of YouTube highlights, obviously some spider charts, and bald white men's mock drafts. So without further ado, the main thing to note is it's a really deep wide receiver class. You can probably find a star in the top 10 as late as day 3 and in rounds 5 and after perhaps. So that's a really good thing. The Niners have needs at offensive tackle, wide receiver. Emmanuel Sanders is gone. Cornerback, obviously. So yeah, Jay Glazer says it's the deepest wide receiver class in 28 years. So hopefully the 49ers can find a star. They need one. Emmanuel Sanders is gone. Traded DeForest Buckner, a foundational brick for the 13th overall pick. Really tough to see him go. I personally think they fleeced the Colts, and it's going to age really well. And the other thing I'd note is they need to nail that pick, whether they trade down or decide to stand pat and pick somebody there. If it's going to be a player in the trenches, that's going to be a little bit less exciting, knowing that there's really some top-level talent out there that we'll get into. But this is fucking the best. I can't wait. I can't wait for it to start. I'm hearing the little jingle of, the 49ers are on the clock to get all corny. But anyways, all right. So the top 4 offensive tackles I think would be great picks for the Niners. I don't expect any of them to be there. My number 1 guy is Tristan Wirfs. Very good athlete. His spider chart is crazy. Ran a 4.85 40. He would be excellent in Shanny's zone blocking scheme. Probably would be an amazing heir apparent to Joe Staley when he does retire. I think this will be his last year, unfortunately. Love that guy, though. Second, I have Andrew Thomas. A lot of people have Jedrick Wills ahead of him, but I like Andrew Thomas just knowing that he's extremely reliable. I don't think he's been hurt in his entire college career. Played in some very high-level games in the SEC, has gone against some of the best edge rushers college football has to offer, was team captain of Georgia, just a fucking stud. And I think he has a really high floor compared to Jedrick Wills. The thing for Wills for me is he played right tackle at Alabama. Another really good athlete, has really heavy hands from what I've seen on tape. But obviously we're looking for a left tackle, assuming that Mike McGlinchey isn't eventually going to make that transition. The 4th guy on my list is Mekhi Becton. We all saw that viral video of him pushing an F-150 up like an incline. It was fucking insane. This dude's an absolute unit. Probably one of the biggest fucking specimens in the entire draft, probably the biggest specimen. There was rumors that he failed the drug test. That's not exactly confirmed, so I can't really speak to that at all. Again, talking on my ass here, but just really a freak of nature. And I think if he was there at 13, I would talk myself into any of these tackles. We really are looking for a long-term bookend to Michael McGlinchey, who honestly proved to be not a sexy pick, but the right pick. So let's get into my actual big board for 13th overall. Let me change my background here. So I think the tier 1 begins with Derrick Brown, defensive tackle from Auburn. He's a one-tech D lineman, meaning he lines up right over the center and he blows up the fucking play. He's a game wrecker. His measurables were actually bad. If you look at his spider chart in terms of strength and agility, it's not very good. But if you just watch him, I mean, he is clearly the anchor of the Auburn defense. Auburn defense has a lot of other talent around him. But, Derrick Brown should go as high as 3. If he somehow fell to 13, it would be a fucking glitch in the matrix, and the 49ers would have to pounce. This immediately would shore up the defensive line. Not that it's a weakness, but strength and a strength, as Evan Silva always says, and potentially – eventually be even better than DeForest Buckner. He's a different player in that he's not quite as versatile. He's going to mainly going to be inside. But Derrick Brown is a fucking beast. And if the 49ers got him, I would be doing a cartwheel. Moving on to my next guy, Who do we got here? Boom. CeeDee Lamb. So originally he was not my highest wide receiver on my board, but after really crunching the tape and breaking down, everything else around it, I have to put CeeDee Lamb as my number one wide receiver over Jerry Jeudy. Kind of splitting hairs, but CeeDee Lamb is a tier one player in my book. And now I would honestly say he's probably my draft crush. His highlights are incredible. He's amazing after the catch. I really thought that I was the first person to compare him to DeAndre Hopkins, but ever since I said that, I feel like I see that comp everywhere. So maybe I just got hacked and I didn't even realize what I was saying. But he seriously reminds me of DeAndre Hopkins. Doesn't have a great 40 time, 4.50, but that's nothing to be alarmed about. Only 11 bench press. So again, nothing to be alarmed about. We're really kind of poking holes in a prospect here, but he has been knocked for not having an advanced route tree and playing in the Big 12 with some weak defenses. But he's the youngest of the top three wide receivers. He can play outside, and he's really good at jumping up and going to get the ball. He has a really nice catch radius. Jimmy Garoppolo, I obviously am going to defend that guy, but one of his weaknesses is his deep ball. He's not super accurate on the deep ball. It would be really nice to have a receiver. CeeDee Lamb is 6'1", but he plays bigger than 6'1". It would be nice having a guy that can go up and get the ball and bail your quarterback out. So that's the end of my tier one guys. Tier two, we are going to move on to Jerry Jeudy. So Jerry Jeudy all along has been my draft crush. I honestly think if I have a couple IPAs in me tonight, he might usurp CeeDee Lamb. I love Jerry Jeudy. One of the biggest reasons why is I think 6 months ago or so, I saw an interview where Nick Saban was talking about Jerry Jeudy, and Nick Saban was gushing about him, just talking about him like he was the fucking cure to fucking COVID-19. He is the fucking shit. I think out of all the wide receivers, he probably has the highest floor. Not to regurgitate a bunch of takes that you've already heard, but an amazing route runner. One thing that jumps out at me is when he does go through his cuts, he pivots so violently. That's something that is almost alarming to me. At times it almost looks like he's going to hurt himself, sprain a ligament. But he's just so athletic, amazing body control. He ran a 4.45 40, so nothing incredible, but solid speed for his size. I think that one of the recent things that came out was some medical issues. The Alabama doctor came out recently and said that he's absolutely fine. So again, kind of poking holes in this prospect as well. But the thing that jumps out for me, along with CeeDee Lamb for Jerry Jeudy, is really flashed in big games. Played in obviously the CFP 14 playoff, and really dominated some really good defenses. Didn't make the CFP last year. Played against Michigan, I believe, and just fucking torched them for 200 plus yards and at least one touchdown. Shout out Jim Harbaugh, sad. So yeah, Jerry Jeudy is a fucking baller, and if the Niners get him, I'm gonna be fucking thrilled. The next one is a little bit of a surprise. I honestly can't even believe I'm throwing this guy in here. But this is a tier two prospect, and this is CJ Henderson. Honestly, I didn't really even know much about CJ Henderson until the last couple months. But I think knowing that the wide receiver class is so deep, for them to immediately get the second best corner in the draft, and then address wide receiver after that, that would be a really good scenario. I think obviously CJ Henderson blew up the combine, played in the SEC, which is good to see. He has elite body control. Some of the pro player comps I've seen that I agree with are Aqib Talib. He has played in zone and in man from what I've read. But his measurables are insane. He ran a 4.39 40, 20 on the bench, 37.5-inch vertical. That's really amazing. He's a stud. And from what I watched, when he gets quote unquote beat by a receiver, and he has his back to the ball, he still has the wherewithal not to kind of be a hero. He turns his head and he goes and finds the ball and he makes a play. So that's really good to see. So moving on to my tier three, honestly, this guy is kind of one of my favorite players in the draft. This is Justin Jefferson, LSU. I personally really value college production. He played with amazing talent around him, and he had an amazing offensive coordinator calling the shots. He has the number 1 overall draft pick throwing in the ball. All that aside, I think he would be the wide receiver 1 in any other draft class. In most other draft classes, I should say, ran a 4.4 340. He has a better vertical jump than Jeudy and CeeDee Lamb. He's not a huge receiver. I think he's only 6 foot, but he plays a lot bigger than that. He's going to go up and get the ball, just like CeeDee Lamb will. He might not be a great fit. He plays primarily in the slot. 49ers definitely have players that want to play in the slot. Obviously, Debo kind of, they move him around. But I envision, Jalen Hurd is probably going to be in the slot a decent amount. Trent Taylor probably the most. Not to say that would, keep them back from drafting him, but I really like Jefferson. I don't like him at 13. I would primarily like to see the 49ers trade back, potentially with the Dolphins. We'll get into some of that in a minute, but I really like him. I think he's a really safe pick. I think that there's a lot to like about him, and he also has played really well in big games. Justin Jefferson, this is the beginning of the tier 3. So we had Derrick Brown tier 1, CeeDee Lamb tier 1, Jeudy tier 2, CJ Henderson tier 2, and then now we're in tier 3 with Justin Jefferson. Moving on to our next guy, another receiver. This is Henry Ruggs. So Henry Ruggs is a freak athlete in the same vein as Mekhi Becton, offensive tackle. Obviously ran a 4.27 40 at the combine. Pound for pound, oddly, he might be the best jump ball receiver in the entire draft. He's not even 6 foot, but I don't even know how he does it. You should see his spider chart. He has like T-Rex arms. He has like some of the shortest arms of this entire wide receiver class, but his vertical leap just allows him to go get the ball. His basketball highlights that Matt Mayoka just tweeted out are fucking crazy. He's just an insane athlete. I do think the comp to Tyreek Hill is unfair. I think Tyreek Hill is more of like the exception to the rule rather than the actual rule itself. And I think for Henry Ruggs, I think I would be okay with them taking him at 13. I think there's no way he falls past 15 at the Broncos. But yeah, he's probably going to be a better in real life player than, a fantasy asset. If he falls to it or gets onto a team like the 49ers and a Kyle Shanahan offense, he's going to be a cheat code. He's going to make everyone around his life easier in the same way that Steph Curry creates shots for fucking Draymond Green, who clicks them in the corner and then doesn't defend him when fucking Mav Carter is talking shit about him. That's another story. But yeah, the good thing about Henry Ruggs is he pretty much can play anywhere due to his speed. It's just game-breaking 4.27 speed where you're not going to find a faster wide receiver. And I mean, it's just an immediate game changer in that way. So, so that's the end of my tier 3. Tier 4, moving on to, I believe this is our last guy, Javon Kinlaw. Some positives about Javon Kinlaw. He wants to be a Niner, has his head screwed on straight. Listened to a few interviews from him. Seems like a young, hungry, likable dude. He, I think, is a little bit actually more versatile than Derrick Brown in the sense that he's not going to just line up over center. He'll play, 3 tech, even 5 tech. He's still a true defensive tackle. He's a better athlete than Derrick Brown, but again, Derrick Brown really just didn't test well. That's kind of just a weird case there. I would say that Javon Kinlaw's comparison is like a Chris Jones, getting pressure inside, as we saw in the Super Bowl. It's a game changer. If you don't have interior linemen that can just handle one man, it's a big problem. So I think selecting him at 13th overall would be a reach. I don't know that I would call it a mistake. He has had some health issues, his hips, and I think his ankles, which is not a great sign. But if they could trade back to, 15 to 18 area and select Kinlaw, pick up a late second, maybe early third, I'd be okay with it. It just wouldn't be a sexy pick and not something that I would be super stoked about compared to some of the wide receivers that I talked about. But he's in my tier 4 of 49ers prospects that are on their radar. Honestly, all these guys are really solid players, and I think the 49ers are in a really good position to for any of these guys to become all pro. There's a world where that exists. So closing, kind of just talked about a lot. Some of my other draft crushes, Michael Pittman from USC. He obviously has the pedigree. He's really smooth, big dude. He's a lot more fluid than you would think for a guy that size. Another one, Antoine Winfield. I honestly love that guy. The biggest problem there is just availability. I think he like played in 8 games, averaged 8 games the last 2 years or something. But watching him play against, actually played against Auburn in the bowl. Antoine Winfield was amazing. I think he had an interception right off the bat. Really, really solid player. I think that has huge, huge upside as a safety. 49ers haven't really drafted an elite safety prospect. They drafted Tavarius Moore in the 3rd round. I can't remember if it was last year or the year before. But they're eventually – I don't think they're going to re-sign Jaquiski Tart. And he would be an immediate I think he would be eventually a star. I'm really high on Antoine Winfield. Another guy, if they decide not to address D-line later on, they can pick up hopefully trade down and pick up a pick in late 2nd, early 3rd. I really like Raekwon Davis out of Alabama, a high floor guy. The one thing that worries me is he did say he kind of degaffed last year. Not a great sign, but he's a fucking beast. Huge man, large specimen. I've seen some pro player comps compare him to DeForest Buckner, which obviously would just be a seamless fit. Amik Robertson, Louisiana Tech, really solid player, primarily in the slot. So Niners don't really have a need there. K'Wan Williams is honestly probably a top 5 to 10 slot corner right now, if not better. But he is a free agent after this year. I think he's probably going to demand a huge payday that we can't afford. So he makes a lot of sense. Late day 2, day 3 guy that I really like that has been a kind of a sexy name is Antonio Gibson. This is a Swiss Army knife. The thing everyone knows about the 49ers is, they have interchangeable parts on offense. Deebo Samuel can play wide receiver. He can play running back. George Kittle can play fullback or tight end. Kyle Juszczyk, same shit. Just deception. And I think Antonio Gibson checks those boxes for Kyle Shanahan. Obviously can run the ball. He's a game breaker. He has really solid speed for his size. He's kind of like an oversized running back, but can also play wide receiver. So really like him. And then obviously I'm biased. I really like John Runyon. I don't know why he's going so late on day 3, tackle out of Michigan. So they decide not to address offensive tackle. They think Joe Staley's fine next year, and maybe even a year after that, maybe they take a flyer on John Runyon. They have 2 7s, they have 1 7th rounder, 1 6th rounder, and 2 5th rounders. John Runyon would be like a 7th round pick, but I think he would be a solid flyer to take and teach and coach up. So yeah, that's my big board. Can't wait for tomorrow. I think the 49ers are probably going to trade back twice. So all of this might be fucking pointless, just like the rest of my life. But 13 and 31. I would love to walk away with one of those blue chip wide receivers and then trade back from 31 for maybe 2 seconds or a second and 2/3 or something. Yes, acquiring bricks begins tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed.